"What can I get you?" he asked with a smile. "Just some petrol. 3 big bottles, please." "Going on a trip?" No, I'm going to set fire to my ex's wedding," Amara said, still smiling. The attendant laughed, thinking she was joking, and said, "Here are your bottles. Good luck, and have a nice day." Amara, a beautiful and kind woman, makes a shocking choice to set fire to her ex-boyfriend's wedding. Why would such a nice girl do something so crazy? How bad is her ex to deserve this? Or is there more to the story than just a breakup? You'll find out soon. Once upon a time, in an African country called Kukima, there lived 2 sisters, Amara and Zuri. They were as close as 2 sisters could be. Their parents were poor and worked hard to provide for them. Despite all the struggles, they were a happy family. But one day, tragedy struck. Both their parents were on their way to a wedding in another village when the minibus they were in had an accident. Though they survived the initial crash, they both passed away at the hospital, leaving their 2 girls alone. Amara, the oldest, was only 14 at the time, and her little sister Zuri was just 6. The sisters were devastated, crying together at night. Amara was still so young herself, but understood that she was now Zuri's only family and would have to step up to protect her. Life became incredibly hard. They had little money and no one else to care for them. Amara made the tough choice to stop going to school so she could work at the market. Every morning she walked down to the market, selling fruits, vegetables, and anything else she could find to make a bit of money. The days were long and exhausting, but Amara didn't complain. Every coin she earned, she saved for Zuri. Zuri continued going to school wearing old clothes that Amara patched up every few months. Her classmates sometimes mocked her for being poor, which made her feel embarrassed, but she used that as fuel. She studied hard, determined to one day change her situation. Amara was very pretty, and many young men in the village came to her with marriage proposals. But they all had one condition. They didn't want Zuri around. Amara would always smile politely and refuse. "My sister is my responsibility," she would say, holding her ground. And so, she continued to work and sacrifice, putting Zuri's future before everything else. Years passed, and Zuri finished school and got accepted into a university in the city where she studied law. Amara was overjoyed, but it hurt to see her sister leave. She worked twice as hard to pay for Zuri's tuition, sometimes taking on extra jobs just to keep up with the payments. But her sacrifices paid off. Zuri worked hard, determined to build a new life. She graduated from university as one of the top students and landed a great job as a lawyer. Now that she no longer had to pay for Zuri's tuition fees, Amara began saving up money to build her own life. She was now 35 years old and felt worn out by all she had endured. She dreamed of moving to the city and opening a small shop. Despite the fact that her sister was now living comfortably, Amara never asked her for anything, not even money. She was simply proud that she had managed to raise her sister and give her a chance for a better life. But as soon as Zuri secured a job, she began to distance herself from her sister. Deep down, she felt a bit ashamed of Amara. She wanted to leave her past behind and focus solely on her future, free from the memories of struggle and sacrifice. Zuri quickly became known as a strong, confident woman, sharp and outspoken. She didn't back down easily, which made her both respected and good at her job. But those qualities also caused problems in her personal life. Though she was doing well in her career, her personal life felt empty. She struggled to keep friends, and her relationships didn't last long. When a big opportunity came up to move to another country, she didn't hesitate. It was a chance to grow her career, make more money, and see more of the world. Amara was happy for her, even though it meant her little sister would be even farther away. They kept in touch with phone calls and messages, but as time passed, the distance between them felt more than just physical. Zuri was always busy and had less and less time to talk to her big sister. With Zuri now independent and stable, Amara's friends encouraged her to think about her own happiness for once. At first, she was hesitant, but slowly, she opened her heart to the possibility. One day, her best friend introduced Amara to a man named Akande. He was handsome, kind, and had a gentle way about him that made Amara feel safe. They started spending time together, and Amara felt happiness she hadn't felt in years. Months passed, and their relationship blossomed. Together, they saved enough money to move to the city and open a shop, just as Amara had always dreamed. Akande was a true romantic. He would bring her flowers and tell her she was the most beautiful woman in the world. One day, Akande proposed, and Amara was the happiest woman on earth. Finally, life was being nice to her, she thought to herself. But before getting married, Amara wanted Akande to meet her little sister, Zuri, the only family she had left. So she called Zuri and told her about the engagement. "Please come back to Kukima. I want you to meet your future brother-in-law." "I'm so happy for you," Zuri replied without too much enthusiasm. "My schedule's busy, but I'll try my best to come in 3 weeks." "Okay, I miss you. See you soon." "See you." After the call ended, Zuri rolled her eyes, irritated. She thought to herself, "Even my chubby sister can find a man before I do. This is pathetic." 3 weeks later, she finally managed to arrange a trip home. Amara was beyond excited. She imagined her sister would be happy to see her so loved after all the years Amara had sacrificed just for her. The day of the visit, Amara and Akande set a beautiful table and cooked a wonderful meal. When Zuri arrived, Amara greeted her with a big hug, happy to see her after such a long time apart. She then introduced Akande to Zuri. But something unexpected happened during that first meeting. Akande was mesmerized by how beautiful Zuri was. He had only seen pictures of her back when she was a young girl. And Zuri, for her part, was stunned by Akande's charm and good looks. They spent the night laughing, eating, and chatting together. Zuri and Akande couldn't stop glancing at each other, but Amara noticed nothing unusual. That night, Zuri and Akande lay in their beds, each asking themselves questions. "How can my sister have such a handsome man?" Zuri thought. "He's so tall, and his smile is amazing. She doesn't deserve him." And Akande wondered, "How can I marry Amara when she has such a beautiful sister? She's younger, rich, and single. I'd have it better with her." As days went by, Zuri and Akande began exchanging secret messages. They would meet in hidden places and spend time together. Meanwhile, Amara was happily planning her wedding with Akande, completely unaware of what was happening behind her back. 3 weeks later, Zuri had to return to Bobola, but she couldn't stop thinking about Akande, her sister's fiancé. They kept calling each other in secret, deeply in love. Zuri even sent him money, and he was living the good life. Soon, Akande became distant. He hardly cared about Amara anymore and was always on his phone, texting. He started picking fights with her over little things. Amara sensed something was off, but never, not in her wildest imagination, would she have guessed that her fiancé was cheating on her with her own sister. One night, Zuri and Akande were on the phone and she said, "I want to be with you. I can't live far from you. I can't live far from you either. Let's find a solution." Akande replied, "We can get legally married so you can move with me to Bobola. We can live our love life here, far from Amara." "That sounds like a great idea. Let's plan it all." A couple of weeks later, Akande created a fake argument with Amara. He shouted at her, and at the end he said, "I can't marry you. You don't respect me. We're done." That day, Akande broke off his engagement with Amara. She was heartbroken and had no idea of the real reason behind his decision. She called her sister and her best friend, crying and blaming herself for not being good enough. Zuri, however, was thrilled. With Amara out of the picture, she could marry Akande as they had planned. Weeks later, Amara was at home when she received a call from her best friend, the one who had introduced her to Akande. Amara, did you hear the news? What news? Akande is getting married to your sister. What are you talking about? My sister lives in Bobola. Yes, I know, but she's back. They're planning to get married next week and then fly together to Bobola. Amara couldn't believe her ears. She passed out from the shock. When she woke up later, she took her phone and called Zuri to confront her. She expected her sister to deny it, but Zuri told her coldly, "Yes, I'm marrying Akande. Such a handsome man deserves an amazing woman like me. You're old. Your life is over. Let me live mine." For the first time, Amara shouted at her sister, cursing her over the phone, but Zuri didn't care. Amara was devastated to know her sister had betrayed her in the worst way possible. And Akande? How could he do that to her? But the most painful blow came when she received a formal wedding invitation from Zuri herself. Inside, her sister had written a short note. "Please bring a gift." The betrayal and humiliation was too much to bear. Zuri was the person Amara had sacrificed everything for, the sister she had loved and protected like a mother. Now, Zuri had taken the one happiness she'd finally found. In that moment, Amara felt a burning desire for revenge, ready to show a side of herself that no one had ever seen. On the day of the wedding, Amara woke up filled with anger. She left her house and walked to the petrol station, her mind focused on one thing only, the wedding. When she arrived, she approached the attendant confidently. "What can I get you?" he asked with a smile. "Just some petrol, 3 big bottles, please." "Going on a trip?" No, I'm going to set fire to my ex's wedding," Amara said, still smiling. The attendant laughed, thinking she was joking, and said, "Here are your bottles. Good luck, and have a nice day." With a few liters of petrol in hand, Amara walked towards the wedding venue, her heart pounding with rage. When she reached the place, she could see people arriving, dressed in their finest, laughing and chatting. It made her feel sick. She waited until everyone was inside and the ceremony had begun. She poured the petrol around the entrance. Before lighting the match, she raised her arms and shouted, "This is my gift to you both. May your love burn as bright as this fire." With that, she struck the match and threw it onto the ground. Flames shot up quickly, climbing high and surrounding the venue in a furious blaze. People screamed as they realized what was happening. They ran in all directions, panic and chaos taking over. The beautiful wedding was ruined in seconds. Amara stood back, watching the flames with cold satisfaction. But then she spotted Zuri in the crowd, standing frozen, tears streaming down her face as she watched her wedding burn. Amara's anger rose even higher, and she charged toward her sister, tackling her to the ground. "Judas, I'll make you pay for what you did to me," she yelled while punching her in the face. Just then the police arrived and pulled Amara off Zuri, arresting her on the spot. She didn't resist. Luckily, no one was hurt in the fire, but Amara was sentenced to 2 years in jail. During that time, she didn't hear from her sister or Akande. Over time, Amara began to regret her actions, feeling that anger had blinded her. But at that moment, she'd felt she couldn't hold herself back. After getting out of jail, Amara decided it was time to leave. She packed her few belongings and moved to a city far from everyone she'd known. It was time to build her life somewhere new. Once there, she quickly found a job as a babysitter for a wealthy man named Mr. Okoye, who had 2 young children. Mr. Okoye was a respected businessman, but he had suffered his own loss. His wife had passed away a few years earlier, leaving him alone to raise his children. Amara had always been good with children. She poured her love and kindness into caring for Mr. Okoye's children, comforting them when they missed their mother, and playing with them to make them laugh. She brought warmth and joy back into their home, and the children quickly grew attached to her, finding in her a gentle, motherly figure. Mr. Okoye noticed the change in his children. They laughed more, slept better, and seemed happier since Amara had come into their lives. Over time, he found himself drawn to her. She wasn't just a babysitter, she had become a part of his family. Slowly, Mr. Okoye began to fall in love with her and told her. Amara, however, was hesitant. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, and she couldn't imagine trusting anyone again. But Mr. Okoye didn't give up easily. He treated her with respect and tried everything to win her heart. He would bring her tea when she looked tired, help with the children when she needed a hand, and often tell her how grateful he was for all she did for his family. In time, Amara felt her heart soften. Slowly, she began to fall in love with him too, and agreed to let him into her life. Their love grew quietly and beautifully, healing each other's wounds. Amara had finally found a new beginning. Years passed, and Amara was living her best life with her now husband and his children. Meanwhile, Zuri's life had taken a different turn. She and Akande had 2 children together, but their marriage was nothing like she had hoped. Akande turned out to be unfaithful, cheating on her multiple times. When he moved with her to Bobola, he refused to find a job and drained all her money, leaving her in debt. They ended up divorcing after just a few years. With all the turmoil in her life, Zuri couldn't focus on her job and eventually became a terrible lawyer. She got fired and had no choice but to move back to Kukema with her children. None of her old friends would speak to her. They all knew what she had done to her sister. She struggled to find a job and feed her children. How could Zuri, the once beautiful, successful lawyer, end up a jobless mother of 2? She began to wonder if this was some punishment for what she had done. One day she saw a job listing for a maid. A wealthy family needed help with their children. She decided to apply, hoping they would hire her. When she arrived, she was shocked to find herself on the doorstep of her sister, Amara. Zuri's face went pale, and she froze, not knowing what to say. Amara looked at her sister, taking in her worn clothes, her face lined with worry, her look of pure desperation. A long silence passed between them. Amara's heart was torn between anger and pity. This was the sister who had betrayed her, taken her happiness, and shown no remorse. Suddenly, Zuri fell to her knees, crying. "Please, Amara, forgive me. I have 2 children and I've lost everything. I need money to feed my children, please." Without a word, Amara went into the house, took a large sum of money from her savings, and returned to hand it to Zuri. "Take this," she said quietly, "for your children. But after today, I want you to stay out of my life." Zuri accepted the money with trembling hands, looking down, filled with shame and regret. Amara turned and went back into her home, closing the door on her sister, but this time without the bitterness she once felt. She had given Zuri a final act of kindness and then let her go, freeing herself from the past and choosing peace over revenge.